Hey folks, your OS Reviews. You're watching our video review of the ASUS C200M Chromebook. This is a budget laptop that's priced at $250, and for that you get extremely long 12-hour battery life, a pretty good keyboard, however a relatively small 11.6-inch display with mediocre viewing angles. However, if you are looking for a budget laptop that's going to be great for web browsing as well as for word processing, this might be an option to consider. So taking a quick look at the design first, it has this matte material on the front, which does still attract a fair amount of fingerprints, but it's pretty easy to clean, and there's the ASUS logo next to the Google Chrome logo. Now the front of the laptop is actually made out of a thin sheet of metal, so if you're touching it, it actually does feel kind of cool and makes the device a bit more premium feeling than it really is. Otherwise, it is an ultra-portable, which means that it's pretty slim as well as lightweight and easy to carry around. On the back, you have access to basic specs as well as more details about the specific model from ASUS, and there's also 4 rubber feet that prevents the laptop from sliding around on a surface or a desk. You also find 2 rear-facing speakers that actually sound very good. They're loud, they're clean, they're crisp sounding, and a lot better than what we expected for the price. On the left-hand edge of the laptop, you have access to a charging port. In addition to a full-size HDMI port, there is a USB 3.0 port, a full-size SD card port, and a dual 3.5mm jack that also dubs as an input for an external microphone if you're doing some voice recording or some Skype for video chatting. On the right-hand spine, there's access to another USB 2.0 port and a Kingston lock. So overall, a pretty clean and elegant presentation that matches other portables in the same size as well as a price category. Now, underneath the hood, this thing is running a Bay Trail version of what Intel is calling the Celeron processor, which essentially is an Intel Atom chipset, and it's not as powerful as other Broadwell-based Intel Celeron or Intel Atom chipsets, so performance is not going to be as good. If you're opening up too many tabs, it might get a little bit slower, but for most day-to-day tasks, such as opening up a few tabs and reading, as well as watching a few YouTube videos, it's still going to perform just fine. So the benefit of picking up a Chromebook in 2017 is that support has really picked up, and there are a ton of apps now available, and you can even install Android-based apps directly on the unit to run, which is pretty neat. And of course, there's there's more community supporting it, so you can always install another version of Linux, perhaps Ubuntu if you want to, and then run script languages as well as programming, so there's a lot more that you can do. However, it's still limited by a relatively measly amount of built-in memory. So for instance, on this model, there's only 16 gigabytes of built-in flash storage or SSD, and it has 2 gigabytes of DDR3 RAM, which is sufficient for the very optimized Chrome OS. It's basically just a browser with browser-based apps, which is why it's so fast compared to a Windows computer or a tablet that might have the same specs. It's a lot slower in performance. So everything is really designed to be used with the web browser. That's why everything is extremely efficient. So opening things up, we do have access to a pretty spacious, again, keyboard. On the inside, the laptop is made out of plastic, so it's not nearly as premium as it looks. However, the keys themselves are nicely spaced. They have a good amount of travel, and it's a full-size keyboard as well, which is great for typing on longer messages as well as emails and documents. There's a number row on the top, and on the very top there's another row dedicated to media controls, standard Chromebook keys such as a power key that you tap on for a few seconds. The screen itself will fade out to a white color, and then the laptop will power off. And there's also additional media controls for sound. Down below here, you have access to a very spacious trackpad as well. It supports multi-touch gestures for swiping up to open up all the multiple tabs all at once on your Chromebook, and you can also scroll up and down through web pages with ease. It's a one-piece click touchpad, so it simply presses down as such. It feels pretty even as well as responsive, so we didn't have any issues or critiques with that. The display on this particular Chromebook, the C200M, is one of the more disappointing facets, I would say, and that's just because it offers, again, not so great viewing angles, even though it is bright enough to be seen in moderate light. It also offers rather large bezels, but again, for a budget laptop, it still works fairly well. On the top, there is access to a 720p HD webcam, and you can use this for Skype as well as video chatting clients like Hangouts once you take a quick look at those from the browser's perspective. So again, the thing with Chrome OS is that once you sign in with your Google account, it consolidates all of your online services as well as your bookmarks that you might have from a Chrome browser on your desktop, and syncs it up with this device. So you just simply sign in and you can check out all your emails, all your documents, everything is there. And it's going to be great if you're doing a lot of cloud-based storage solutions as well as cloud-based productivity apps, and it actually works and syncs great. It's quite fast and speedy and responsive. Some people have noted that the problem of Chromebooks in general is, once the Wi-Fi is cut, there's not really that many apps before that they could use. Now there are support for some offline programs. You can take a look at Google Docs, which has now added offline support for Chromebooks, and same thing goes with some other word processing apps that are starting to pick up. And you can always install Android apps now, although I would highly recommend plugging in a thumb drive or an SD card onto the side of the unit to expand on the memory if you're planning on installing too many apps or direct applications offline and not on the cloud. So that's something to quickly point out. So this is a pretty typical user experience. The mouse itself feels very responsive and not at all jumpy, and it's a very typical 720p resolution as well for the display here. And on the bottom here, you can tap on this once to take a quick look at your email status if you're signed in, your Wi-Fi status. This particular Chromebook does also come with Bluetooth in addition to fairly responsive and speedy Wi-Fi connection, which is certainly good to see. So we didn't have any issues in terms of signal strength, and we were always fairly pleased with the overall connection range. This is a volume for the speakers, and you can also check out settings by tapping on this to change things like keyboards, languages, sign-in support, touchpad speed, and you can check out more advanced settings as well. And there's also About Chrome OS if you want to tap on that. If you want to take a look at in terms of what your device is, in terms of its hardware specifications, you have to do that through the browser by tapping on /settings, and that will give you a bit more information on that. So below here we have a taskbar of sorts that you can pin your favorite applications to. They're basically just quick launch shortcuts by default to the web browser for things like Google Docs, YouTube, as well as Gmail and the Chrome browser. Over here we have a list of more applications such as Google Drawings. I can access the webcam as well as see all of my applications down below here. So I can also type on the universal search bar here for Google searches in addition to searching through all of my applications at once. And you'll find things also like a zip extractor as well as other more Google software such as Sites, Drawings, Remote, as well as all, of course, the Google Docs and a document viewer directly built onto this device once you first sign into it. If you have a friend that wants to use your computer for some quick web searching, you can also launch into a guest mode, and that will automatically clear out the data once he or she is finished with the computer and gives them access just to a few basic web browsing apps. What we have is the traditional Chrome experience that we'll come to expect on laptops, PCs, and Macs. And again, it synced up all the previous bookmarks I once associated with this particular email account I used to sign in with. And even things like the ad block that I installed on my PC carried over to this Chromebook once I logged in. So everything really is set up and ready to use. And again, since everything, including the RAM as well as the processor, is geared towards this web browsing experience, no other apps are running in the background. Everything actually runs very quickly despite a relatively not so great processor as well as a RAM package on paper. It actually runs a lot better than a comparable, again, Windows machine with the same specs. So you can see I'm loading up the New York Times, which is a very complex page full of moving elements and images as well as video and flash animation, and you see that everything is running fine, so it makes for a fairly compelling web browsing experience. Even other video sites such as YouTube, Hulu, Amazon videos loaded up without any hitch, and videos basically began playing at, once I clicked on them, so they were almost instantaneous. And again, the speaker on here is actually quite good. Just to give a quick demonstration of that, let's actually go to YouTube and see if I can play back a quick sample audio clip to give you an idea. Now, the speakers themselves actually, again, are mounted so they're facing downwards, which on paper doesn't seem too great, but since you have this laptop on a flat surface, such as a desk, it actually amplifies and bounces the sound off from this flat surface and actually makes it sound pretty good. So let's try. So hopefully that gave you guys a quick idea of what the speaker quality is like. It's actually pretty good and definitely good enough for playing back videos and listening to music with. Obviously, if you want a better experience, you could always plug in a 3.5mm pair of headphones or connect it wirelessly, maybe to a Bluetooth speaker. But again, it's pretty enjoyable. If you're watching longer videos, you can always connect to an external monitor as well, and that would obviously make the screen larger than this 11.6-inch panel you see in front of you. So one other thing I wanted to quickly show you guys, I guess, is just the camera, or I should say the webcam experience on here. So again, it's a 720p webcam that actually works better than I expected. The reason is because even under very low light conditions, it still picks up images fairly well. So it can still capture your shots and allow you to use Hangouts or other video chatting apps, even if you don't have the perfect setup or the lighting behind you and you're talking to family and friends. And there's a number of different filters you can play around with some of these Google software that comes pre-installed. In addition, you can also record 720p HD video directly from this built-in app here. So overall, it's pretty compelling as well as easy to use. So the Asus Chromebook C200M, I would say, is a middle-of-the-road Chromebook. It's not nearly the most expensive, it's not the most powerful, but it does have a very good battery life at over 12 hours. The boot up time is still very fast, and even though it's not the fastest processor even for Chromebook standards, again, everything from the spacious keyboard to the fact that the front here is made out of metal, so it does feel a lot more premium than it is. It's a great option if you're not looking for a Chromebook that has to have a touchscreen, for instance, and you're okay with a ultra-portable with a slightly smaller 11.6-inch display, and you're mainly interested maybe in word processing as well as web browsing and for those mundane day-to-day tasks, and that it's actually a great value for your money. You can check out more details about this ultra-portable laptop in our official written review, but for now this has been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. This has been the Asus Chromebook C200M.